Broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York, Solutions Review is on location at MobileIron Live 2019. Brought to you by MobileIron.
We are back in Brooklyn at the MobileIron Live customer conference. We are joined by the CEO of Incaptic Connect, Raphael Kobylinski, pardon me.
That's correct.
And we just had a nice little chat, and I'm glad you came by because you're effectively a new company. You've only been around a few years, but you've emerged out of a solution development from a large enterprise, and you're solving a very interesting problem that mobility is faced with, and that is the management of internal applications that are being developed across a large enterprise, and the challenges with regard to certificates and control over that, which is an obvious vulnerability and one that has just recently effectively emerged in just the past couple of years. Speak a little bit about the concept of Incaptic.
Yeah, so thank you for having me here. We came across about a very, very interesting issue that large companies are facing today. So with the proliferation of the iPhones and iPads and Android devices came an effort to actually move beyond PIM and leverage this technology to use apps to support various work-related use cases. And large companies have started to build internal in-house apps for their employees. So B2E apps, business-to-employee apps, in contrast to traditional B2C apps. And this has been a trend over the last couple of years, and a lot of companies have developed very business-critical applications. We've seen now corporations developing tens or even hundreds of applications for their employees. And what happens there, those apps need to be distributed to the employees. So the actual distribution, those companies can use solutions like MobileIron to put those apps into an enterprise app store and distribute it to the end users. What has been overlooked so far is that once those apps are built and updated, someone has to put those apps into the app store. At scale, this becomes a real issue.
Well, and it's interesting because this is one of those organic problems that just emerges from all the other factors that are now happening within the enterprise. You've got agile development, you've got mobile device ubiquity, and you've got very smart app developers within large corporations with the ability to think about how they can leverage these new technologies to enable their people. And so they're doing exactly what they should be doing, building more interesting apps that are making businesses more efficient. But that brings along with it this organic problem of certificate management and what happens when you begin to, push these kind of independent applications out to employees, the vulnerabilities that exist.
Absolutely. So with the successful companies that are really advanced on this journey, leverage agile teams across the company to build those apps. And those agile teams, for good reasons, work pretty independently. So they pick their developers, sometimes external companies pick their tools, and produce those apps, which are very relevant for the business. But then in the traditional setup, they open a ticket with IT for each new version. And if you have a phone, you know that successful apps are updated frequently to fix bugs, deliver new features. So each time they open a ticket, and then IT gets a ticket and has to process all those updates. And there are certain technical tasks that need to be done. Typically, organizations for security reasons and compliance reasons don't want to share the distribution certificate with all the developers, in particular the external developers. So they need to sign the apps, test the apps, and then deploy them to the enterprise app store. So traditionally, this process can take a couple of days to up to 2 weeks to process an app update till it's available in the store. And that's obviously a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of back and forth emailing. So what we essentially have built is an automation software and kind of an electrical drill for this arcane manual process. And we can shorten this process to even 2 minutes. So it essentially becomes a same-day activity, and the business unit, the application owners within the business unit can run this actually in full self-service without the organization having to give them access to the certificates or give them full access to the MobileIron system.
Well, I just think it's fascinating when someone can effectively see the opportunity that exists within an organic evolution of something as simple as app development. And this is no secret. This is a big business problem, right? This is for large enterprises but because they're large enterprises and because they're very distributed, there is a challenge with regard to that management.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I was lucky enough to actually have an inside view on that. That's how I came across this problem. Because if you look from the outside, you might not see this at all. So how it came into existence is I had the opportunity to consult Deutsche Lufthansa on the future app strategy and devices strategy, and we looked at various issues that they had back then and actually discovered that this is a growing problem, and they had a roadmap for apps that was huge. And it was very clear that the process that they had at that time, this won't scale. They would have to hire people or build an offshore team to do it manually, and I thought, well, that's not a feasible approach. That's a waste of human energy, and there must be a solution in software to that. There wasn't anything on the market, so we developed an initial version of that for that customer, and that's how it all began.
Excellent. And how are you finding your integration with MobileIron? How does it work specifically?
Yeah, so the initial version that we developed for Lufthansa didn't have an integration with any EMM yet. It solved a number of issues that the IT had with app publishing, including the certificate management, even before it hits the EMM. Right? So then I went out and started talking to other potential customers to understand if this problem exists outside of Deutsche Lufthansa. And one of those customers, which happened to be a MobileIron customer, asked us, well, this is nice, but we would like to have an integration with MobileIron. So we approached together MobileIron, and then discovered that MobileIron has great APIs where we can automate the full process, and develop the initial version with MobileIron.
Well, and ultimately that's it, right? Once you've been able to understand the problem, figure out how to put the technology together within the API streams and connect with the certificates and manage them, you've formed a business. I just think that's fascinating and well done.
Yeah, so it was a great journey, and MobileIron has really invested a lot into the APIs and exposed a lot of functionality there. So we are constantly working on also giving feedback to MobileIron to make this even better going forward. So that works really well. Yeah.
Well, outstanding. Well, Raphael, thank you for swinging by. I hope you're enjoying the show. It's been eye-opening for us. I mean, it's really quite an amazing space and an amazing time with all of the challenges and opportunities, and it's great to see somebody taking advantage.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York, Solutions Review is on location at MobileIron Live 2019. Brought to you by MobileIron.
We are back at MobileIron Live 2019 in Brooklyn, New York, and we are joined by one of MobileIron's launch partners. It's Gavin Chen, Business Development at Wandera. And you guys are actually, well, you're right next door to us, first of all,
Yeah,
but you're
yeah, just right there. Yeah.
but you're also, it's interesting, you're kind of extending the capability of MobileIron on a couple of different tracks beyond the traditional EMM suite of solutions. Can you talk a little bit about that first? Maybe the content, or maybe the cost prevention, or
Sure. So as you mentioned, we're one of the launch partners for MobileIron's new ecosystem initiative, their resale marketplace, for their field team as well as channel partners. And we basically help them with two major areas. One is cost management for data. So data management, it's kind of an old thing, but there are not a lot of solutions that address it specifically in the EMM partner space. So what we do is we allow our customers to implement policies for data management. So this includes things like capping data based on cellular connections, based on Wi-Fi connections, or based on both. Blocking websites as well, blocking apps as well. So one good example of this is we have a customer who is a multinational company. They have executives that fly around the world, and an interesting one that I thought was very memorable is they had an executive before they used our solution who would fly to Dubai regularly. And you know, people, they have their phones, they want to see things like Netflix or YouTube. He flies to Dubai, he watches Netflix, the company gets a bill from a telco the next month for $1,900.
yeah, it's not unlimited data when you're on the road.
Exactly. And some of these countries have like really, really spectacularly high data costs. So we can.
I love that example because that's like, it would be such an obvious thing for like an executive to think, well, I'm unlimited data wherever I go all the time, and then they realize, and they're probably just as bummed as the accounting team.
Exactly. And that doesn't go just for the executive team. It goes for anybody. So field sales and sales engineers, someone who's working in, for example, a hospital or something. If they have their device and they want to access this kind of content, they can, without anything to block them or cap them from data use. And that kind of leads into the second use case, which is content filtering. So we help MobileIron with that in terms of preventing people from accessing things they shouldn't. So I said hospital. Actually, I would say that most hospitals would be really angry if their workers were looking at YouTube or even more like extreme things, illegal things, adult websites while they're on the job.
Right.
So we can help customers prevent that from happening by implementing policies.
Well, and these are the kind of dirty pieces of work that have to get done, right? I mean, enterprises have employees, humans that are out there making decisions that sometimes get them into the weeds, and ultimately, you know, a mobile device management, enterprise mobility management solution can't be expected to do it all, and oftentimes it has to be a little more blunt force with regard to these sorts of binary decisions.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, what Wandera is bringing to the table is a more subtle control over that.
More granular control, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
right.
Yeah.
Which again, I think is fascinating because there's all this opportunity in this space right now. So how long have you been at Wandera, and how long have you been solving these problems?
I mean, I work in Silicon Valley, so for me, it's like a lifetime. Like 9 months is a lifetime, but yeah, I work in business development. I manage our strategic partnerships with our partners like MobileIron. So it's been great.
That's great. Well, thanks for swinging by. We appreciate the time. This is certainly an interesting point and something that everybody should be considering as you're sending your executives out there. Don't necessarily trust but verify. I don't know what would be the right term.
Right. Don't trust but verify. Yeah, that's the right term.
And control.
Yeah.
Control that data flow.
Right.
All right. Well, great. Thanks a lot for coming by, Gavin.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Yeah.